There's been some real increases in Pokemon cards as of recent, and I can't put my finger on it, but something feels different. Though before I get into today's video, I'm actually gifting this Team Rocket's Raticate. Now, if I reply to your amazing comment with this Jirachi emoji, then congratulations, this card is coming your way. And hey, if you are new to the channel, I'd just like to say hi, I'm Phil. I create a lot of videos around the Pokemon market and Pokemon TCG. Definitely feel free to subscribe for continuous updates. But Pokemon cards rising in price is something that's pretty normal, and it's not something that really gets questioned too much. Traditionally speaking, Pokemon cards, rise a little, then they drop, then they rise again, and then they usually break their previous high points, and then they drop, but they don't drop lower than their previous low points, and the cycle continues. But a question no one's really asking, where is this actually continuing towards? Like, is it just gonna be a cycle of endless growth? Because we know that's not really possible, but why does it feel like Pokemon cards just climb endlessly in value? Like, take Fusion Strike booster boxes, for example. Earlier this year, a lot of people thought that the price of a Fusion Strike booster box was overpriced, and just now, look how much it's increased. And I mean, it's just getting weird, right? Because is Fusion Strike currently a good price at the current market value? Could we be looking at this Fusion Strike booster box next year and it's doubled again? Because that's what it kind of feels like it's happening. It's just like this endless growth cycle. It's really bizarre. But anyway, check out some of the prices that we're dealing with so you can get a good idea. All right, Charizard Pokemon 151. Super loved card, right? And I mean, I remember this card used to be like under 100 US. So this card's really growing. As you can see right there on that graph, going pretty high in price, dude. And am I surprised? I don't know. I mean, it is Charizard. Charizard just had this thing. I feel like 2024, people got over Charizard, and at the start of this year, people weren't too bullish on it. But now I think that's kind of changed, especially with the whole new, Phantasmal Flames and the new Charizard premium collection that we're getting with Phantasmal Flames. There's a lot of Charizard fans that have awoken. But check this out. In the 3 months, selling for $182, and right now selling for $292 US. I'm going to pull this into the year graph. We can see right now that looks like it's matching its previous high point. Actually, it's $2 above it right now. So you can see that Charizard is very much in demand. And of course, the Pokemon 151 Charizard is always going to be loved. The thing is what happened, and you can see that big dip that happened. The reason why Charizard from 151 did go down so much in price is because, Blooming Waters came out in January or February. There was a lot of Blooming Waters out there. A lot of Pokemon 151 got open, and, it did help the prices come down. Kinda am wondering if Blooming Waters didn't release, where would the prices for this Charizard be heading? Because it was in such a demand period. Check this out, yeah? You can see that the Charizard was just climbing relentlessly, man. And then Blooming Waters came out, and then it started kind of trickling down in price. And of course, now it's kind of booming again. In just a second, I'll be showing you some other Charizard cards that are climbing in price. But we can really see that the 151 Charizard is in its own league at the moment. And the pull rates for this one aren't too difficult. But I'm actually curious to see a lot of your thoughts. Where do you think this Charizard is going to end up? Is it going to become one of the most iconic collectibles for the Scarlet and Violet era? Charizards usually do perform well, and they usually perform very good in the long term. For that reason, this card is definitely one I'm going to keep an eye out on. Moving on to the PSA 10 sold versions. This is where the prices go, to banana levels, right? Because you can see right here, 36 bids, 1,712 US. That is wild. Now, you might be thinking, wait, the raw is like 300 US. Why is it getting that price? Well, this Charizard in particular has like an under 40% chance to come back as a PSA 10. In fact, the quality control for this Charizard actually was pretty poor. And, the PSA 10 is very sought after. About a year and a half ago, I sent 2 Charizards to PSA. They were both pack fresh. One came back as a PSA 8. The other came back as a PSA 9. The chance for these to grade a 10 is very difficult, and of course the market's price reflects that. If you ever see a slab worth so much more than the raw price, always get the percentage figures of how likely it is to get a PSA 10. That is usually the key metric you can see when you get these massive price discrepancies between the raw and the PSA 10 counterpart. It literally all comes down to how unlikely the card is to get a PSA 10. When we look at the Magikarp illustration rare, that's another one, right? I mean, the raw card versus the PSA 10 is a massive price difference. And of course, the reason for that is because the Magikarp illustration rare has a 20% chance to come back as a PSA 10. What you don't want to be doing is being confused and saying, hey, that PSA 10 isn't worth that price, because you know what? It likely is if you look at the percentage differences. Also, I just want to say, if you do purchase collectibles, especially for investing purposes, tracking your collection's worth is one of the most important aspects about the hobby. And that's why I'm proud to have partnered with Collector to bring you this sponsored video. Now, Collector is a complete collection collectible portfolio manager that updates pricing in real time, along with allowing you to research sets to make the best decisions. For example, Collector has a set analytics section which allows you to dive deep into any set's performance, and it also provides you a volatility score based on historical performance. Collector also has just launched a markers sold feature. Just go to an item in your collection, select the 3 dots, and place the price you sold for an item. This is an amazing new addition as you can actually get a clear view of realized profit. Now, one of the cool aspects is if you actually upgrade to Collector Pro, you can actually use your phone's camera to scan cards and it will automatically add them to your collections. Now, if you'd like to try out Collector, you can actually find all the details about their app in the video's description. A big thanks to Collector for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back into the video. Moving on to the Charizard VSTAR from the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. Funny things about the Charizard UPC, which I'll talk about that in just a second. I just want to talk about the VSTAR. Look at this, selling for $30 in June of this year. This card's right now selling for pretty much $70 US, $68 right there. This card is a very cool card. It's the reverse perspective from the Mewtwo from Crown Zenith. You know, really awesome Charizard card. Now, here's a funny thing about Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. The Charizard UPC, dude, that was the most abundant product you could get. That was so heavily discounted. Literally, the only thing you could buy is Charizard UPCs. You know, that was on flash sales. It was so funny how it's happened because now the Charizard UPC is just such an in-demand product. And, you know, with all the Sword and Shield packs inside, it's become a really desired collectible. And of course, these promos are also making the price come up a lot. Now, moving on to another interesting one is the Gengar Trainer Gallery from Lost Origin. In the last 3 months, selling for $13 US, right now selling for $37. And now there's this huge Gengar hype that's happening. I think a lot of it has to do with like a lot of collectors wondering what's going to happen with Phantasmal Flames. You know, all this talk about Mega Gengar as well. You know, Gengar is one of the most loved Pokemon. If you look at Gengar collectibles, they always get really strong prices. And that's why even a lot of people in the Pokemon community, they say, hey, there's a Gengar tax. For some reason, you know, Gengar cards, they just have such high price points in the market. And this one probably was rising a little bit slow, but you know, right now it's approaching 40 US. So, you know, it is a very desired collectible. Now, moving on to an interesting one is the Destined Rivals booster box. Check out this 3-month snapshot. Selling for $247 US. Right now selling for $359. Like, you know, to me, this is a brand new booster box. Now, here's my little frustration with this, right? I knew when Destined Rivals, I saw it was like, you know, $250, I think it was at that time. I wanted to buy more of it, but because it was still so expensive, I couldn't buy more because I'm like, oh man, it's just too expensive. I can't literally buy 2, 3, 4 booster boxes of this. It's way too out of budget. So, you know, I only bought one Destined Rivals booster box. I was very confident that it was going to go up in price given how good the artworks are. But of course, you can see that we do need a massive Destined Rivals reprint because I think getting that price for, you know, a set that just came out in May is a little bit damaging to the hobby. I don't think it's that fun when, you know, most people should be able to buy this. Literally, I think at least 200 US. We all know that the hobby's increased in price, but you know, 350 US for one booster box that, you know, to everyone's eyes, I think everyone still considers this brand new, is so disappointing. And I think like now we're going into this Mega Evolution set. Are, you know, Pokemon going to be focused on restocking Destined Rivals? Are we going to get a lot of reprints? I'm not really sure what the climate is for that, but you know, I can already see that the Mega Evolution set, you know, the new base set that's coming out is so in demand. We can see Phantasmal Flames, you know, you can still pick it up in some places. It didn't sell out as quick as a lot of other products did, which I suppose is a good sign. But you know, for Destined Rivals, I'm kind of thinking like, wait, we still need a little bit of Destined Rivals to come on the market as well. So I'm really hoping that the reprint window for Destined Rivals is long because currently that's what we need. And I did speak about it in a previous video, but I kind of mentioned like, hey, I don't even know if we need that many new sets anymore as much as we need to kind of revisit these older sets and, you know, get these out there because, you know, I think a lot of collectors haven't even truly experienced Destined Rivals. I definitely know a lot of collectors haven't had their full kind of appreciation of Black Bolt and White Flare. So, you know, when I'm thinking about all these together, it definitely is a little bit disappointing when we see prices like that. Also, if you are wondering how to stay up to date with all the new Pokemon news coming about, feel free to join my channel's Discord community. We've really been growing lately and it's a fantastic resource. The Discord invite is in the video's description. Now, moving on to Ethan's Ho has just had a recent increase in price. We can see it was selling for 144 US, you know, early August, right now selling for $183. You know, Destined Rivals is such an awesome set. To me, it's definitely the best mainline set from the Scarlet and Violet era. So for that reason, I can see the singles are in demand. I can see that Destined Rivals booster boxes are in demand, but of course, where are these prices going to go? No one knows, but we all know that the cost of the hobby has definitely got more expensive, and whether or not booster boxes are ever going to go back to like 120, 130 US a booster box. But right now, 2025 has definitely been probably the hardest time to enter the Pokemon hobby. And like, if you are new to the hobby, I just want to say it was never really this bad. Like, especially not this bad, definitely nowhere near that, right? I mean, last year, you could definitely pick up booster boxes for 120, 130 US a booster box. Right now is the first time that we're seeing these really high prices for, sealed product. Now, moving on to Team Rocket's Mewtwo, it was selling for $403. Then it kind of fell down to $341. Right now selling for $370. Like I said, Destined Rivals to a lot of us is still considered a new product. And seeing that price point, seeing the price of these singles, because it does sting a little when you pay those massive prices for booster boxes. Now, interestingly, Crown Zenith, which I will be going over the ETB in just a sec, but Crown Zenith has really increased in price as of late. And I mean, probably a little bit overdue, but Crown Zenith reprints, I'd probably say that they're probably out of the question. We did get the Sea and Sky boxes that came out last year, and I think that's probably the last Crown Zenith product we're ever gonna get. But it's a Sword and Shield product, so I think the door has closed, but no one knows anything for certain with these things, right? So we can see the Glaceon was selling for 35 US, right now selling for 42. If we pull this into the graph, the Glaceon did have a low last year for around $20. So, Glaceon VSTAR has definitely become a very loved card. Awesome artwork as well. And, Crown Zenith, like I said, and I will go over the sealed product in just a second, and I imagine the singles are going to become desired in the community as well. Moving on to the Leafeon from Crown Zenith as well. Can see selling for 41 US, right now selling for $50, which, is definitely a good price for this card. These two have awesome artworks, and, I'm actually surprised that they didn't increase much more in price because, these were coming off that huge Evolving Skies Evolution hype. Everyone really expected these to be very, very expensive, but, the pull rates for Crown Zenith were much more friendly than previous sets, and that definitely helped the prices maintain and not get to, those insane levels. But of course, selling for 50 US right now, which I think is actually not too bad of a price with all things considered. But when we look at the sealed Crown Zenith ETBs, check this out in the last 3 months. Sell for 174 US. Right now, Crown Zenith ETBs are selling for $215. Where is the ceiling for Crown Zenith? Right now, if I pull this into the graph, right there, you can see Crown Zenith just on that snapshot there, super high growth. I mean, last year I was selling for $53, and a lot of people were buying Crown Zenith back then, but selling for $220 right now. So I'm kind of feeling like Sword and Shield products are getting a little bit of out of reach for a lot of people. Even though I do think Crown Zenith is probably the best set from the Sword and Shield era, I'm thinking, how is it gonna play out in the long term? Because one thing you need to know about the Sword and Shield era, when a lot of people were talking about, oh, Fusion Strike, oh, Chill and Rain, all those sets, a lot of people would say, hey, they're not going anywhere. Pokemon's printed these into the ground. There's way more people in the hobby. These modern sets, they're not going to be worth anything. And now we can all see that modern sets, especially stuff like Fusion Strike and those older Sword and Shield booster boxes, they've really increased in price. So will the Scarlet and Violet era follow the same path? With the amount of people entering the hobby, it is a very interesting time. Like 2025, even on this channel, I just see so many new people coming in, which is amazing to see. It's always amazing to have new people enter. But of course, we also need the product to, cater to this new audience as well. And I really hope, and I've got some good faith, that 2026 will be the year where we actually get a fair bit more product coming out, and hopefully we can actually secure product without having to pre-order it straight away. Maybe it will be the year we can walk into stores and buy a booster box for retail price, but we're just gonna have to see as it goes, because literally since Prismatic Evolutions released in January of 2025, we've just been dealing with this new level of demand in the hobby, which has been definitely exciting. It's been an amazing time, to meet a lot of the people on this channel, and all these people have came in, which is really cool. But we're probably not that happy paying $350 a booster box, for a set that is literally 3 months old. So big things are happening, big changes, and I am very curious to see where 2026 and stock availability goes from here. But these prices continue to climb, though there's a bit of confusion on which cards are actually going to become iconic in the long term. And I actually reveal my own thoughts of which cards I believe will become really iconic in the future in this video on screen right here. Within this video currently appearing on screen, I go over what I believe will be the most iconic Pokemon cards in the next few years. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the video that's currently appearing on screen, and I'll see you on the next video.